Kalki grabbed onto something and pushed himself out of the bog. His entire face was covered in mud and grease which he wiped out, and he was able to stand clearly over the swamp. It had taken a toll on his strength, but he had been able to do it. He walked towards one of the tree trunks for support, and finally he saw Brahmaputraksh fall in the swamp as well, and he was easily standing over it too. To master the bog, one must be trained well. How did you do it? He asked, walking slowly towards Kalki. His razor-sharp chakra slashed across Kalki's chest. Another stinging pain coursed through his body. His ankle wound was also burning since all the bacteria and dirt had mixed in with the blood. You are a weaker kind of human. You are a Manav while we are. And Brahmaputraksh went straight towards Kalki's chest. Kalki stopped him. His eyes opened as mud trickled from the corners of his forehead. He twisted Brahmaputraksh's arm as he groaned in pain. I'm not weak. Kalki gave a swift smack on his torso, staggered, and then he felt another smack on the head. Kalki grabbed him by the throat as Brahmaputraksh tried to attack him. With the second chakra, Kalki let him stab his arm. Blood seeped from his skin, but it didn't hurt him. His focus was only on Brahmaputraksh as his fingers began to clasp him tighter and tighter until he could feel the Pishach's larynx begin to break. Kalki pulled Brahmaputraksh up from the bog. He rammed his fists into chest and shoved him inside the bog again. Brahmaputraksh struggled trying to push himself up, but Kalki didn't let him. It's over, Kalki growled. It's over. And then the protesting stopped for good. The hands stopped flaying and there was no guttury sound anymore. He was gone for good. Kalki sighed as he touched the blood on his skin. He began to walk forward out of the heavy deep bog that surrounded him, where there was a ladder, but before he could climb the ladder he fell down unconscious. Kalki opened his eyes, gasping for breath, when he realized he was watching his own shadow at the ceiling. He was in a dark room and his eyes searched and scanned for Padma and Kripa only to see candles around him. He was lying over a rocky slab and he realized his entire body was burning and stinging at the same time. His neck ached and his muscles did too. He felt extremely exhausted and weak. God, this hurts. Kalki sat up and saw that his chest was glinting. What in the world? He touched it. There was a strange symbol carved over it. It was a zigzag mace-like symbol in the middle of his chest, shining as if it was powered by firelights. The door opened and he turned to see it was Padma. She was wearing a heavy fur-like coat around her body. She looked rested. You are awake. A glint of happiness was on her face. I mean, she coughed. You are awake. She normalized her voice. Where am I? You saved us. The Pishach let us leave because you killed their master, and that was one of the most honorable things to do according to them. They wanted you to be their next leader, but we kind of knew you didn't want to wear a necklace of skulls, right? She smiled and Kalki realized that this was the first time that Padma had given him a genuine smile. Yeah, who does? He looked outside the door. It was snowing. We are in the hills. Oh yeah, come on, we have reached a cool place. By the way, cool place, eh? Kalki walked to her and asked, what is this? He pointed at the symbol on his chest. I don't know, it appeared on your chest when you killed Brahmaputraksh. Like magic? Oh yeah. He stepped out and even though he was standing in the cold, he felt nice. The breeze was smooth and harsh at the same time. The mountains were large and capped with snow. The skies were sapphire colored. There was no sunlight. He took a deep breath in, letting the fresh air of freedom rest in. How many days have I slept for? 3 to 4 days. You kept waking up because of your fever, so we fed you. Then I don't remember anything. Yeah, because you were not completely conscious, but it's all right. She patted him on the back. Don't you feel cold? No, I don't. Of course you don't. After all, you are the savior of this world, right? She winked. She is cracking jokes now. What really happened, Padma? Why are you being nice to me? Because now I finally believe what Arjun told me. He believed you were the avatar, and I didn't believe it not until I saw what you did back there, how you would have sacrificed yourself to fight the Pishach. You were fearless and you did it with ease, although I didn't expect an avatar would collapse due to blood loss. Here she grabbed his arm. I believe in Lord Kalki. Lord Kalki? I believe in him too. I guess for some reason he could picture Lord Varha grinning at this from afar, thinking that finally Kalki had done what he had been meant to do. And also the folks here were quite happy to see that symbol on your chest. I mean, they wouldn't have rescued you if you didn't have that symbol. Folks here. Padma pointed to the side where there were more huts and cottages like the ones Kalki had just stepped out of, and then he saw there were furry civilians walking with coats and strange long dhoti wearing shawls and what not. They had tufts of hair around their faces, bulbous noses and big mouths. Some of them were using bamboo sticks to fight while some were just meditating under trees. It was an entire town submerged in the snowy-capped hills with uneven beauty slopes and a horizon that never vanishes. Padma excitedly Durukti spoke. I was always curious to see them, and here I am, Vanas. She nodded. They cured you. They had these crazy herbs. Wow, yeah, but the good part is we are close to Mahendradiri Mountains. She pointed at the far hills which were visible from there. Should we leave then? Oh no, she shook her head. He wants to see you. Who? Padma licked her lips in anticipation. He was quite curious to meet you, the leader of the Vanas. She paused. Lord Bajrang. Lord Bajrang? Yeah, you might know him from the books, the stories, the history of us. I can't believe he's real. Of course he is. You know what the textbooks in my Gurukul called him, right? Kalki asked. Where? I used to study these myths. No, Kalki smiled. They called him Hanuman. Kali had lost consciousness, and by the time he woke up, he realized it was the first time in a long time that he hadn't had a nightmare. He could feel that he was being transported somewhere. He could even see the figures that were carrying him. Coco and Vikoko were beside him. He could glimpse Durukti too. She looked concerned. His body ached and his mind was fizzing. He could feel his temperature was high, and in the background he could hear people shouting. Unable to understand what was happening, he fell asleep in and out of consciousness. He had wondered aloud, where am I? You're safe. Durukti's voice had comforted him. What is happening? But then he dozed off again. It was quite evident why he was ill. He had been beaten to a pulp under the scorching heat of the sun. There were bruises all over his face and arms. Some of the sand had gotten in his mouth during the fight. Finally, when he next woke up and saw his surroundings clearly, he realized he was in a small hut with a concrete ceiling and fire lights around him. Right next to him, Durukti was sitting and looking at him intently, while on the other side sat a strange old man with a grey beard and a crooked eye. He was wrapping bandages around his arms and legs and massaging a strangely scented ointment on his body. He could see shadows of Coco and Vikoko at the door guarding him from harm. Are you better? Durukti asked. The room was far smaller than his quarters. Kali nodded to the question as he began to stand up, but he was pushed down by the old man. Stay, he said with a wispy snake-like tone to his voice. You fell ill terribly. Kali sighed as he looked at the man. Clearly he recalled him from somewhere, as if he had seen him some time back. You? Kali's eyes widened. I know you. The old man nodded impassively as he went over to the other end of the room and brought something familiar to Kali's notice. It was Kali's crown which he had given to the old man. Gratitude reciprocates, I believe, the man said, but somehow the man looked different, strange now. He seemed more in charge and dangerous, mysterious. He helped us take you in. What about the infirmary in the kingdom? There is no kingdom. She lowered her gaze. I am sorry, but it's been taken over by Urvashi. She killed all your loyalists and convinced the ministers to go against you since you got beaten up by a prisoner. How did she do it? Did you get my pouch of soma? That can help me. She shook her head. It got lost. Someone stole it. Kali was coming to his conclusions, but then his mind was going all over the place. You mean to say I have lost the very city I have been fighting for? Yes. The old man didn't say anything. He kept himself busy tending to Kali. Kali closed his eyes. He had been defeated. He rubbed his aching arm as he thought about all the things that had happened. How did we escape? He quietly asked Durukti. We were on a run chased by the prisoners when Coco and Vikoko found a chariot in which we could travel out of the city, and then we met Shukra. She pointed to the old man. Couldn't we just hide in the city? Urvashi was hell-bent on finding you. She wanted you out of the city, and if we would have stayed there, gathering an army would have been a problem. We had Kuvera's allegiance, Kuvera allies with the powerful, and you are not it. I'm a nobody again. Where are? In the outskirts of Indragarh, one of the villages of Kikatpur. She sighed. To be honest, it's not even a village, it's a farm. Kali nodded. He tried to stand up but couldn't. Feeling weak, he plopped down and fell asleep. Kali walked out of the hut with a wooden cane. He leaned on it as he walked, looking at the mighty hills, the downward slope, and the local farm with sheep and goats. There was also a small mill nearby. The pastures stretched wide and large. The skies didn't end where he stood, and it somehow felt pleasant from where he used to be. In the oil-drenched, smoke-infested city, this was cleaner. Coco and Vikoko stood like diligent guards. Kali was proud to have them. They would never turn their backs to him because they had pledged a blood oath. No matter how much they hated Kali, they could never betray him. He wondered how Urvashi had gotten the idea of releasing the prisoners. It seemed so far-fetched for a young girl to be able to stage a coup. There is more to her than meets the eye. He also thought about his pouch of soma and how it had gone missing, and where had Arjun's strength come from? There was a connection that Kali was missing. There must be someone in the middle of it all. Someone had orchestrated Kali's downfall, though whoever that person may be, he had been successful. Kali had been defeated and left left out in the woods in some farm that he had no idea about. With his cane he limped forward to see a small razor-like ravine flowing with crystal blue water zigzagging and smashing against the rocks. "How do you feel?" A sickly troubled voice came from the back. Kali turned to see Shukra, who was slouched. He was wearing a long dark robe. Walking over to the river he came and stood beside Kali. "Better you came at the right time, otherwise you would be dead right now. The river asked to be bloody, you know bloody. When Asuras were alive he opened his mouth and revealed his rotten teeth." Kali realized the man's eyes were golden. "Everything was in their order." Kali arched his brows. "You are an Asura, aren't you?" "Yes," he smiled. "And so are you, and so is your sister. I thought we were the last ones." "You don't know anything, foolish one." Shaking his head, Shukra continued, "You don't know what you are capable of. You don't know that your enemy is alive and is out there." Arjun. Kali nodded. No, Kalki." Kali dismissively twisted his mouth. "He is dead, so you think, but he isn't, and he's up there preparing to fight you." He pointed at the mountains. "How do you know all of this?" "I have seen everything." Shukra played with his beard. "The crown. You didn't want money for your family or your daughter." "No, I wanted to see if you were generous or not, and you were good for you. You are supposed." Shukra shrugged, leaving Kali to contemplate. He began walking further, and Kali followed him. Why? "Why is Kalki my enemy?" "The prophecy." Shukra mumbled. "What prophecy?" "The prophecy of every age. Adharm, they shall come at the brink of people's troubles and shall fight, determining the fate of the world. You both will be trained in the arts of your expertise to have the last battle." Kali clenched his fist. "Dharm and Adharm?" "Yes, the good and the bad. So I'm Adharm." "Good turn. What do you think?" "I must be. I have done awful things." Shukra smiled. "The Asuras were the most majestic and the most powerful race. They ruled justifiably, but history mocks us. The Asuras were evil. That's why our homeland Patal suffered a witch hunt where Asuras were impaled and put to death. We were hunted by Manavs, for we spread hate and did black magic." Shukra sighed. "All liases to apprehend us. We were good, justifiable." He said the word justifiable as if it meant something to him. "The most beautiful race. Intelligent. Look at you, Sis." Now he signaled at Kali's bald head and his loose skin. "You have made yourself worse, young one. It was the illness. I know it was the cursed one. He was behind it. Should I believe what he is telling me? He seems a little crazy." But then there was one fact that Kali was supremely interested in, and which he wanted to probe further. "You said Kalki is Dharm, and I am Adharm. My training, what is it? How shall I be trained to fight him if you say he hasn't died?" He shook his head, keeping his lanky fingers over Kali's shoulder. "You are Dharm." Mayhem ensued. Arjun had realized that this would happen, and it had. The entire city of Indragarh was in chaos after Urvashi had taken over the city. While the prisoners rejoiced, the council was furious over Urvashi, who had promised them order in just a matter of few days. They had said to her that she can't control the public with a paramilitary force. Urvashi had been adamant, though she would rather have this army than trust the council. One of the noblemen who had been ragging against her was Ramras. He advocated that it was unwise to let a young girl rule the city, for which he started a motion for removing her, making him the interim ruler till they found someone suitable. Urvashi denied the motion. She was the previous ruler's daughter, so she was queen by birthright. The motions kept going back and forth while Arjun stood amidst the mayhem. He was given the task to cleanse the city, make sure there was no issue between the prisoners and the public. The public was retaliating while the prisoners supported her. Some prisoners had chosen to leave Urvashi after her purpose had been. Some of them, like Rudra and Harsha, had stayed back. Rudra had managed to convince Arjun to help Urvashi as well. "You defeated Kali. You are special," she had said to Arjun. But now, as Arjun stood in her office, she looked worried. Her tutor was telling her everything about how the city had to be handled. Arjun stood there and watched in silence. She was asking her tutor about grains, transportations, trade with other cities, infrastructure designs, temple reorganizations, and donations. By the him was Rudra, who was now wearing decent long robes with a tight waist belt. He looked extremely handsome and happy. Urvashi's tutor scampered when she yelled at him for irritating her with all the problems he left. Closing the door, she looked sheepishly at Arjun and Rudra. "Don't tell me there is another revolt by the public. We are preventing them as much as possible." Arjun had noticed that Urvashi had a tempestuous nature. "I must remain calm when dealing with her." But Rudra began glancing at Arjun for permission. Arjun nodded. "The prisoners, they want freedom. They feel tied to you. They have grown afraid of you. I freed most of them." She slammed her fist on the table, her eyes bulging out of her sockets. "The ones who stayed behind are getting their dues, I know, and I'm trying to convince them, but they still want to leave. I cannot handle their drama." Rudra, "Deal with them yourself and make sure you are successful." It sounded like a threat. "My lady, since you are the queen, not for long." She stood up as she showed the letter to Arjun. when it was from the council who wanted a public hearing. They want me to be elected just like any other ruler, prove my worth, and let the public decide. They think it's the best way to end the processions that keep happening in the streets. It does make sense. This might be a ploy from Ramras, who wants to use this opportunity to take the throne, but I don't believe it's a bad idea at all. If you have the correct agendas in place with the appropriate planning, you can show them that you are prepared and they won't take your age into a count. Rudra said. Arjun mulled over it. He had a few ideas he wanted to give. What about taking help from Lord? She frowned. My father hated them, but you need them, don't you? They bring in the money and that could facilitate the infrastructure, the trade. It could fund the reformation of the city. Urvashi was silent for a moment, lost in thought. See, Ramras has control over the nobles and the nobles have the power of voting twice. Since right now you are the active ruler of the city, try to mend the problems so the public sees you in a better light, and then at the day of the hearing, you would have good deeds backing your statements. Urvashi nodded. You are right. In return, you can ask what he wants. Once we have the hem, we push him back to his own kingdom. Sounds quite easy, Rudra added. Arjun didn't like the comment, laced with sarcasm, but then that was how Rudra was. He acted a lot like Kalki sometimes. Fine, set up a meeting. We should go talk to him. I just hope he's not a Kali loyalist. She paused. I just want Ramras to back off so I can continue to do what my father wanted to do. Build more temples around the city, especially rebuild the ones that have been demolished by Kali. Arjun nodded. Ramras, a quite young noble, had surprised them when he had spoken against Urvashi. They had later found out that the reason he didn't want Urvashi on the throne was because of her sex, not her age. It was all right for a cruel creature like Kali to be the ruler, but not a woman. Arjun didn't know how capable Urvashi was, but she had managed to dethrone Kali. Arjun had held taking Kali's bones, but it had been Urvashi who had driven away his loyalists. Speaking of breaking bones, Arjun had never felt so good in his life. His body was brimming with energy and his mind was moving at a fast pace. He felt great and he felt he could jump leagues away. It was amazing how the Soma could give him this kind of a power. Should we be worried that Kali might return? Arjun asked. He has nowhere to go. If he comes, he'll come alone, and we might just get the correct opportunity to kill him. She grinned at the thought. Let's hope we do this right, Urvashi said, and let's hope we right the wrongs that Kali has committed in this city. Do not forget Raktapa. He's at Suryagarh as of now with his army. If he learns that Kali is not ruling Indragarh, he might make a move. Arjun said he had been reading Kali's journals that mentioned all he had done for the kingdom till now. He had also learned that a portion of his army had been sent to a certain individual called Tal. For some reason there are a few Rakshas here, but I think most of them are now in hiding or have scampered off to Suryagarh to their leader Martanja. Their previous leader is dead, and then Pradma perished in a fight with your father. The Rakshas had no one to lead them. Kali's gone too, so they left. The ones who couldn't leave died at the prisoners' hands during the coup. Urvashi ran her fingers in her hair. What should I do about it? Topple him as well, Rudra said. If you do that, Arjun eyed Rudra, dismissing his answer completely. You might lose soldiers, and right now you scarcely have them. He pulled out the journal of Kali and showed her the distribution of the army. If you can appease the villagers, telling them you are Vedanta's daughter, they might stop the revolts, and you can bring that army from the village to the city where they can be of use. Also, I would suggest you start building relationships with the rulers of Varungarh and Agnigarh. These cities are quite prosperous in different areas, and the harvest in Indragarh is quite low. Urvashi sighed. Yes, teach me everything about it, I would suggest. You are suggesting a lot, Rudra snapped in between. Arjun frowned. Because she told me to. I don't want any tension between you two. Both of you are the most stable people right now in my camp, so please don't fight. Arjun rolled his eyes, and so did Rudra, but Arjun could see that Rudra was enjoying his moment. I would suggest that we give one of these cities to Lord Kuvera in return for funding Indragarh. Arjun went over to one side of the office where he opened the chart of Ilavarti. Agnigarh, he pointed, in the middle, has iron mills and manufactures most of the weapons for Udayas. We get it from here. Varungarh is popular for water tanks and conservation, especially rain harvesting. Agnigarh is more of a military city, and you need someone capable to rule it. I would suggest you give Varungarh to Lord Kuvera, since it's not of any importance to us who's ruling. Some lieutenant of Kali, he can be dismissed. Also, when we get the funds, we can use them for soldier enlistments, since our army has depleted majorly in comparison to Dakshini's army, and we clearly don't want Lord Vibhisna to see this as an opportunity to hit back at us. Arjun explained, pointing at Bhanati where Lord Vibhisna lived. Urvashi scratched her head, lost. I'm so confused. It's all right. Arjun stifled a laugh. I feel like you have more knowledge about all of this, why don't you just be the... She chuckled, glancing at Rudra. I'm a humble villager from Shambhala. Arjun kept the chart back, rolling it up. Urvashi nodded. I know, I understand. Fine, I will do whatever you just told me, and also send out messengers to all the villages in Kikatpur to announce that Vedanta's heir will be handling the administration. Now I should prepare a speech as well for the hearing. Arjun could see that she was doubting herself. She had managed to take back the throne, but she had no experience. Unlike Kali, he had waged a war and won the kingdom, but there was no questioning the fact that she was the legitimate ruler. All cards had been stacked against her. Her sex and her age bothered the council. There are people who want to meet you, Rudra said. Some people have chosen to believe in their rightful queen. Don't they know I might just get deposed in the hearing?